How do you wind up a community interest company, one of those companies set up for the benefit of the community? Well, the first thing you need to do is consider, is the company solvent or is it insolvent? Then, when we determine that, we then need to look at the articles of association of the company. Remember, the articles of association of the company, not some sort of mystical document in the middle of nowhere that nobody looks at. It's a fundamental constitutional document of the company. Depending on your point of view, could be potentially the most important document of the company, but potentially also not looked at too often. But in the case of an asset lock body clause, you will find that in the Articles of Association of a community interest company. And the reason being is because if the company is wound up, what are you going to do with the assets? The assets have to go somewhere. They cannot go into the back pockets of the members and the directors. They have to go to an asset lock body. And if one hasn't been set up, then the directors of the company will have to speak to the relevant regulator and determine where they can go and with agreement. So, if the company is insolvent, the asset lock body clause doesn't have so much relevance, okay, because there won't be surplus assets after paying creditors to go to an asset lock body. So we can push that to one side, and I'll come to that when we talk about voluntary strike-off. Right. Creditors voluntary. There are other ways, but the main way, if you've got an insolvent community interest company, is to go into creditors voluntary liquidation. Okay, you need to pass a special resolution, 75% of the members of the company, and bang, you pass that special resolution, and into voluntary liquidation you can go. However, before you get too excited with that, you still need to appoint a liquidator. If you're going into creditors' voluntary liquidation, you cannot do it yourself. It has to be done via the appointment of a liquidator, ratified by the creditors of the company. So, that is the way the liquidator will realise the assets after costs, hopefully make a distribution to creditors, and then wrap it up, and the company will float into dissolution. Now, if the company is solvent, however, probably the best route, could do members' voluntary liquidation, but I'll park that because it's probably not going to be relevant, okay, unless you've got £25,000. At the end of the day, you don't set up a community interest company for tax purposes in that way, so therefore it's very unlikely a members' voluntary liquidation is going to have any relevance. So the correct and the most likely outcome is going to be strike off at Companies House, file a DSO1 form, but before you get too carried away and do that, you do need to take a look at the asset lock body clause. Make sure you distribute the assets to the relevant asset lock body, and then you can go into the DSR1 form and get the company, provided you comply with the relevant procedures in terms of notifying all the relevant parties and giving them a copy of the DSO1 form. Hopefully everything will sweetly sail into dissolution, and away you go. Questions, queries, concerns, give us a shout. We know insolvency and winding up and liquidation inside out.